once you've stripped all these layers and layers of filters away, that essence that is left, that essence is pure, unconditional love. It's just pure before it's been diluted and filtered through all our cultural conditionings and gender conditionings and so on, and ego responses. So in that realm, I encountered my father, and all I felt from him was pure, unconditional love. And I understood that that's all he had ever felt for me. And even when he tried to get me married, he did it out of love, because he believed that the most loving thing he could do was to find me a good husband, because that was his cultural belief. I understood that even though I had always thought I was a victim of my culture, I realized that in a sense, either we are all victims or none of us are victims, because even he is a victim of his culture in the same way I was. He was just bringing me up in the best way he knew how, doing it as lovingly as he knew how to do. This brought me huge understanding of how so many of us are well-meaning, but it doesn't always appear that way when we express through all these various filters we have. I also realized in that realm that even though I was looking for forgiveness from my father, I realized that what I got from him was something far more than forgiveness. It was pure compassion and empathy. And that is far deeper than forgiveness, because when you forgive someone, what you're really saying is that you've hurt me, you've wronged me, but I'm going to forgive you anyway. So it's like you judge the person, that they've done something wrong, but you're going to forgive them. What I felt from him was something far deeper and far beyond that. It was more a feeling of, you didn't do anything wrong, you did everything the best you knew how. And that's all I felt for him and from him. I also encountered the essence of my best friend. She had passed away 2 years before my near-death experience. She also had suffered from cancer. And I had missed her painfully as I was going through the cancer myself. And I had also felt tremendous guilt, because during her last few months of life before she died, I had been unable to see her because I couldn't deal with her illness. I couldn't deal with her deteriorating body. Every time I went to see her, it had brought me fear, because I was already suffering from cancer. And it made me feel that this is what I had in store for me, because her deterioration was very, very rapid. So I couldn't bear to see her the last few months. So when I got the call from her sister that she had finally passed, I was really devastated. And when I saw her in the other realm, again, all I felt from her was just unconditional love. And it was just the most amazing feeling to connect with her. During this time while I was in the coma, my brother was in India trying to reach Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong, lying in a hospital bed in Hong Kong. My brother was trying to reach me before I died. I even became aware that he was trying to get on a flight. And I even recall thinking to myself that I have to stay alive. I mustn't die before he gets here. I reached a point where I realized that I had a choice of whether I wanted to come back into my physical body or go onward into death. At that point, I absolutely did not want to come back here into the physical body, because it was just so amazing in the other realm. I had never recalled ever feeling so light before and so liberated, The fear was gone, the fear of the cancer, the pain. I had suffered for 4 years in discomfort. It was all gone. There was no reason to go back to that physical body. Not only had I been suffering, but my family had been suffering, caring for me. And I just couldn't see a single reason to go back. But it was in that moment that it seemed my Father impressed upon me that it's not your time. You need to go back. There are still some gifts for you. And I felt as though I didn't quite understand at first, because what I felt was, what is the point of going back to a sick body? But also it seemed that in the same instant, it was as though I had this vision of clarity, or like I had entered another dimension. And this other dimension or realm was like I had this feeling of incredible clarity, where suddenly everything made sense. And I understood. I understood why I had the cancer. I understood how everything in my life had led me to that point in time where I was lying there dying on that hospital bed. I understood also that we are amazing, magnificent, powerful beings, because I felt my energy, my essence was so huge and powerful and amazing, powerful beyond my imagination, beyond anything I could ever have known before. And I realized that I had never known this. It was the first time that I knew this. And then I realized that now that I knew what I knew, if I go back into my body, my cancer was going to heal. And it was at that moment that my Father impressed upon me, now that you know the truth, go back and live your life fearlessly. And it was at that time that I started to open my eyes and come out of the coma. And as I opened my eyes, I saw my family, I saw my husband, my mother, my brother who had just arrived. And they were all there, and they were smiling because I started to open my eyes. And at first, even though I was opening my eyes and I started talking a little bit, I could hardly talk, and I was very, very groggy. And it seems that I wasn't making any sense. I started to say things like, Dad said I was going to be okay, Dad was there. And they had no idea what I was talking about. But they were just happy that I looked like I was coming out of the coma. And then a little while later, the doctor walked into the room, and he was surprised that I was coming out of the coma. And he actually said, this is wonderful that she's coming out of the coma. And I greeted him by his name. I said, good afternoon, Dr. Chan. And I was very groggy. I said it groggily. And apparently, I had never seen this doctor before until after I'd gone into the coma. That was the first time he treated me. So he looked at me and he said, how do you know my name? And I said, aren't you the one that took the fluid out of my lungs in the middle of the night? And he said, yeah, but you were in a coma. How would you know that? And I was still very groggy. I said I was. And when he left the room, I said to my husband, why was he so surprised that I recognized him? Isn't he the one that said to you that my organs are shutting down and I won't make it through the night? And my husband said, yeah, but he didn't say that in this room. Apparently, the conversation had taken place 40 feet down the hallway and the door had been shut. And I had been aware of everything that was happening. Over the days, I started to tell them more and more. And I started to remember more and more, because the first couple of days I was really confused. But more interestingly, I said to the doctors, you can remove the oxygen tube. I don't need it anymore. And sure enough, I didn't need the oxygen. I told them they could remove the food tube. And the doctors were getting really, really surprised. Now, within 4 days, my tumors shrunk by about 70% just to the touch. And even though my body was still very weak, I wanted to sit up. I wanted to talk. It was like I was euphoric. I knew something had happened, but I still didn't understand exactly what had happened. And because I was feeling so euphoric, it was like I still couldn't walk yet, but I just felt so happy. And normally I love listening to music. I absolutely love music, all kinds of music. So I was telling my husband that I want to listen to my music. Can you bring my iPod? And so he brought my iPod into the hospital. And bear in mind, I was in the intensive care unit, separated only by curtains between the other patients. And my husband brought my iPod in, and because I still had the wires connected to me and to my heart and things in my veins, and because I had all these big Band-Aids because of the open skin lesions, I couldn't put the earphones in. So he set up these little speakers by my bedside, and I wanted to listen to Dancing Queen by ABBA over. It's such a happy song. And so I was in my bed just shaking and listening to Dancing Queen over and over. And I was laughing. And then, and my husband said, you know, and I hadn't eaten in months, and that's why my muscles had wasted away. And the doctors said, you've got to eat. And I said, yes, I'm ready to eat. And they said, what's the first thing you want? I said, chocolate ice cream. And they, surprisingly, they actually said that's all right, you can have that because it's soothing for the throat. They just removed the food tube. And so there I was with the chocolate ice cream and listening to Dancing Queen. And finally, one of the nurses came in and she said, the families of the other patients are complaining. They said, you're causing a disruption in the intensive care unit. So they had to move me to a regular room, and the doctor said that these open skin lesions I had, the doctor said they would have to call in a reconstructive surgeon to actually stitch them up because they were so big, the wounds were so big, they were not going to heal on their own, particularly because I was still very malnourished. They said I didn't have the strength to heal. What subsequently happened